Happy Wednesday, Focus fam. It's Focus Chan. Hope you guys are having a wonderful week, making some money, and getting a little bit better. Always the most important thing. Let's hop in here, guys, as always, and review the market and see what the rest of the week has to offer. Before we hop into charts, one big thing that I do want to cover is earnings because we just got a lot of earnings after the bell. And this is really going to change and kind of dictate possibly what happens here for the rest of the week. This is our biggest week of earnings if we just dive right into the calendar. We started the week with Tesla. We had big tech on Tuesday, Apple, AMD, Microsoft, and Google. We had Boeing and Shopify here this morning. And then we just had good old Facebook, one of the last tech to report. We had names like PayPal, Qualcomm, ServiceNow, and LRCX that all reported. And we're seeing a lot of mixed reactions, guys. And the rest of the week here is also very important. We have Amazon, the last tech name, and then a few other small names, MasterCard, Pinterest, Twilio. Depends what you focus on, but really all about Amazon. But what I want to look at, guys, are a few of these earnings reactions just to talk about how they could impact the overall market. Let's dive right into it. So one big thing that I've been looking at this earnings season is how does big money react to good earnings? I'm not going to spend the time, guys, to read through all the earnings reports. I recommend you do that. But what happened last week was we saw good earnings get rewarded. We saw Twitter earnings pop nicely. That really is the best example. Snapchat was a really good example. This started to cause a push in, just call it the ad sector. Roku went on a really big push. Google went on a huge, huge push and then reported earnings. Facebook went on a huge push. They were just, rewarding those good earnings. However, what was interesting is they ran it up a lot into the other tech earnings. So if I'm making sense here, last week when we had Twitter and Snap, they kind of assumed that earnings would go well for all the others. So as they start to report, there's no longer any excitement or potentially any reason to buy these stocks. We got the huge run up into it, and now we're getting these numbers, guys. And again, they're not bad. Some companies on here did miss, but names like Facebook, they did okay. They said some concerning things, but we're seeing a lot of earnings now just get dropped. So let's just take a look at a few of them. So first and foremost, we'll just check out Facebook. So if we look at Facebook real quick here, Facebook Q2 earnings, revenue jump, issues quarter three and quarter four outlook, maintains their forward guidance. They beat earnings per share about 3.61, beating the estimate of 3.02, and sales are up. The only thing here that's concerning in what Facebook said is they're still dealing with issues when it comes to advertising, dealing with iOS, dealing with all those problems that kind of linger over Facebook's head. So again, good earnings here, but some negative comments really just dropping it. And remember, they ran a lot before this. So it's one of those things where unless they say something fantastic, it might have already been justified. Let's take a look at a few others here, and then we'll hop into the market. So we had PayPal report. Let's take a look at that. Another big, big drop. I believe PayPal didn't report the best numbers. Let me see, I think they actually missed on revenue, which is not good. So, yep, let's see right here. Very small beat on earnings per share, 1.15, 1.13 estimate. And then they actually missed on sales. 6.24 billion misses the 6.27 estimate. Down they go. The reason why this is so important, guys, is it's a chain reaction in the market. Names like Square are down on PayPal now. Seeing very, interesting things, especially in names that are set to report, like Square, in the next few weeks here. But PayPal reported, we had LRCX, which is down here, which could drop chips. We had Qualcomm report, which actually went well. So all in all here, guys, the reason I'm bringing this up is we're kind of seeing a tug of war at the moment. Some names are up, some names are down, and that's really kind of shaking up the overall market. So let's hop right into it. So if we take a look at the market, we had that big, big bottom last week, right? The 50-day simple moving average. Let me just clear this chart up. That's typically been where we've stopped most of this year. We slip it a little bit, but this purple line, the 50 MA, is really a good dip buy. Big money's watching it, a lot of retail's watching it. It's a very used indicator, and it works. So this pop was really important, and we ran really, really hard to that all-time high. What I like what's happening here for the overall market is it's not necessarily going down on these earnings. We'll have to see what tomorrow brings, with Facebook down, Apple went down on their earnings the day prior. All in all, though, guys, after this big push, we're actually holding up fairly decent, which is getting pretty interesting. We just take a look at the other indexes. They're all kind of doing the same thing, where we bottomed pretty hard, we got to the highs very fast, and now we're just putting in a little bit of sideways action. If we take a look at technology, the one that's kind of being shaken up the most here, because again, they have to deal with all the earnings. Let me just change this real quick. You can see even they're holding up decent, where again, they got that reversion to the mean last week, this beautiful, beautiful push, and they did have some selling, but overall, they're kind of just lingering here. Still very, very bullish. So if we hop back into the market, one simple compass that I'll be using for the rest of the week is simply just squeezes. Or if I throw on my drawing set again, here we go. Really big level we want to note here, and it's this point of control level at 43.70 with our prior all-time high of about 43.84.5, which is from a few weeks ago. Ever since we bottomed and ripped through this zone, we really haven't gone below it. We tested on Tuesday, but bounced really nicely, and then kind of just a non-event today. We had the FOMC, we had some tech earnings. So again, kind of just a non-event. But here's what I want to focus for the rest of the week, guys, is these squeezes that are starting to develop. So if we take a look, we have a really nice 2-hour squeeze starting to form. But more importantly, what I'll be watching is this 4-hour squeeze here. Where most of the time, guys, when we do top out or stall with the market, it gives us a 4-hour squeeze, just like it did last time. And then we completely sold off. So again, with the big pop here, we want to be patient and really let this 4-hour squeeze just kind of develop. And personally, I'm going to let it guide me for the rest of the week. Where if we just continue to chop between all-time high and this prior little lower zone, there's really not much to do. There'll be some day trades here and there, but overall, market's not really moving. There's not much wind behind your sails. However, if we do break out to the upside, we could have a really good push. And if we do break back down, we get a nice reversion to the mean to focus on. So if we take a look at this next zone, and actually need to update it a little bit, had the daily mean here at 43.29, and it actually stepped up to this point of control level, 43.41. So that's a really nice target to focus on for the rest of the week, or even just the next few days here, where again, if that squeeze fires, it's only about 50 points away. That's about the market's ATR. So realistically, we get that reversion to the mean again, and we'll see if it's a dip buy. Just to take a look at a few clouds that might be in play. Let me clear this up. So yeah, if we start to drift towards that 4-hour cloud, that's a really nice spot to look for a dip buy. And again, that'll be right around that daily mean, depending when we get to it. So keep an eye on that 4-hour cloud. If we start to break it, we know the drill there. We can start to see a break down just like last time. And then let's just look at a few other clouds here. The 2 hours is a really good one that's in play, where we fell through it, broke above it, and we've been supporting it here. We supported it on Tuesday, and we support it here on Wednesday. So if we just keep holding above it, we could take out that HOD. Or if we do start to crack below it, that's where we get a sense of a possible reversal. But take a look here, guys. Overall, just want to quick glance. Really want to pay attention if the market does roll over again to this daily cloud. I've said this a lot, and I'll keep saying it. Every time this year, that's where we stop. It's a very simple indicator, keeps you in the right direction, and gives you a life-changing dip buy almost every time. So not to think forward here, but if we do just consolidate, we'll see if we go higher, or we'll see if we go lower. Reversion to the mean's the first stop, and if we start to break there, who knows, we could head back to these lows. And at that point, it's going to get us near the daily cloud. So I'll be ready, but as of right now, just a little bit of patience. If we take a look at the other indexes, they're kind of all doing, again, a similar thing here, where NQ is a little bit shaken up because of tech earnings and, a lot of the tech rotation. But if we take a look at YM, they're also just squeezing here at the 4-hour, right under all-time high, just like last time. Let these guide you, team, where if they start to break out, we can explode. If they start to break down, we have really good momentum in either direction. That's why I love squeezes. You don't need to have a bias. You just need to wait and see, size up both sides, and be ready to take action. So that's my thoughts here, guys, on the overall market. Again, real quick here for technology. I want to be a little bit patient on technology. We're really going to have to see how it kind of shakes up and reacts to these earnings. Took a really nice drop earlier in the week and honestly almost gave us another reversion to the mean. If we take a look at the daily chart here real quick. right? We almost got that reversion to the mean. So on the downside, I'll be looking for that again. But if we just keep holding here, maybe Amazon earnings sends the market. All in all, got to let tech really digest what it wants to do next. As long as it holds above these key levels, it's got a shot at all-time high. Other than that, if it starts to break back down, we know the drill here. Looking for point of controls and looking for that daily mean. Look at the 4-hour cloud. It's very similar to ES, where again, it kind of broke through it last week, broke back through it, and could be a really good level to keep an eye on. All right, just like ES here. So watch these in tandem, guys. Watch rotation. Today was a lot of just rotation in place where the market went, up, down, left, or right. They took turns to buy YM. They took turns to sell YM. Same thing here with technology. Drop, pop, drop, pop. So with this information, guys, really, I can only say this so much, but I hope we listen. Let's be patient. Let's be focused. Let's follow these squeezes, and we'll see where we go from there. We get a few more earnings that might stir up the pot, so let the market digest it, and then we'll go from there. A few setup guys that I'll be keeping an eye on just to wrap up. One is NVIDIA. Again, we're getting a bunch of chip earnings, Qualcomm up, LRCX down, AMD was up yesterday. Just to take a quick glance. Exploded. This is actually a name that I want to cover, but we'll wait a little bit. We'll go back to NVIDIA. So after NVIDIA got through the stock split, it really hasn't done too much here. So I want to keep an eye on this thing just to continue to let it set up a little bit. And right now, it's kind of giving us a very sloppy 4-hour squeeze. I don't have much interest getting caught up in between or in the middle of this price action. But if it can start to successfully trade, 2 and through 200, that's why I think it could start to really heat up here again. You guys can see it's been really big resistance. We dropped from it here, we pop back up here. We've kind of just been having these very weird, very wicky days, these huge wicks in every direction. So again, being very patient on NVIDIA, but it is something I want to keep an eye on, especially as all of these chips start to wrap up their earnings. It's creeping its way on the other side of the 4-hour cloud. So we'll see if it can continue that momentum to the upside. Right now, it still has some, bearish momentum on the 4-hour. So give it a little bit of time. But NVIDIA is a name where I'm very curious at some point if they do true accumulation after the split. And as of right now, it hasn't happened yet. So I'm not going to force anything, but it's just a name that I think is worth keeping a very small eye on. Not a huge focus, but I will be keeping it on the radar. Next setup here, guys, is Roku. Roku had a really beautiful move last week where they broke out that wedge. They exploded on that Twitter and Snap earnings. They fired a daily squeeze, and they went and kissed all-time high. As soon as they kissed all-time high, they found some sellers. Dropped, what was this? Huge drop here. Yeah, 43-point drop off those highs. Crazy. And again, Apple reported, Google reported really well yesterday. So that caused Roku to see a little bit of a pop today, but it really couldn't get going. I was watching this 475 level that's kind of been good support and resistance, and yet again, it rejected today. One big level I think is really important here to note on Roku is this 463 level, which it's continuing to hold, at least for today. So again, going to be very patient on Roku. They have earnings next week, so maybe they go sideways. Maybe they see one more move into earnings. It's next Wednesday. So if we just take a little glance at Roku, just to eye some squeezes here, we get a pretty wide 2-hour forming, not the tightest compression, but something to watch develop, and not the best hourly here. So for Roku, guys, and my setups are pretty thin right now because the market really needs to digest itself. But as long as it can continue to hold 463, I'm just going to get rid of some of these levels. If it can hold 463, I'm going to remain bullish on Roku. But I really want to see it get tight, set up here, and finish that mission to 500. It's got to get back to that prior all-time high. And then I think 500 is just that psychological level that everyone should be looking for. Going to keep a small eye on Roku. And let's talk about AMD. So AMD reported decent earnings. If we just take a look here, about 63-cent earnings per share, beating the 48-cent estimate. Pretty good. And they said some decent things. Bit of a weird reaction, dumped this morning and then absolutely exploded. What I really like about AMD, guys, is keeping it simple and zooming out here to a weekly chart. So if we take a look at AMD, they are firing a beautiful weekly squeeze. If you look at the last one that was this nice, and set up the same, it ran for 3 straight excuse me, 3 straight weeks. Similar squeeze here, similar compression, some good news on earnings, and it's starting to fire, right? Momentum shifts, we get the fire. We're on black dot compression if you're familiar with the Squeeze Pro. And we're firing a black dot on the Squeeze Pro daily. A lot of built up momentum here, a lot of good volume. The only thing I'll say, guys, on AMD is if you just look historically, every time it gets here, it fails. It can run hard and then it just completely fails. It runs very hard and then completely fails. Last time it was here, it didn't fail as hard, and now it's working its way higher. So good to be patient on AMD. Really big day today. Does it continue into the week? Possibly. I really don't like to fight weekly squeezes. Sometimes, you're waiting for a pullback and it just doesn't happen. So want to keep AMD on the radar here, right as it sits under all-time high. Just to confirm. All right, so we got another all-time high level here we can watch. Just after hours levels of 99, 98. So really, guys, it's all about breaking to 100, just to give you a whole number. So keep a small eye on AMD, guys, where, again, a little bit of mixed chip earning results. But if chips start to see some accumulation, that weekly squeeze could start to explode. Or vice versa, guys, if the market starts to fall back down, this has been a historic short that works almost every time. I like AMD, I'm bullish on it, but one or two things are going to happen. It should blow through it, or it's going to get rejected. Keep an eye on it. I'd like to see the bullish scenario, but we do need to be prepared for anything. And then last setup here, guys, want to cover is TTD. TTD is pretty good setup here. It might be fizzling out, but I do want to talk about it. So this is another name that gapped up this week because of Twitter earnings and just has rallied, and slowly but surely fired their squeeze. Really big levels in play here, guys. If you look back, they're breaking this big resistance from prior. And I'd really like to see them kind of get to that 88 and even push to 92 before their earnings, which is next week. So another name that kind of, reacts off of ad earnings. So they ran this week, and then Facebook kind of just dropped them. They spiked on Google and backed down on Facebook. So again, this is a setup that I would just be patient and want to just put on your radar, where if it does start to run into earnings and they're not afraid of what Facebook said about ads, I think it's a name that could continue to push. I played this in the options room with Simpler, and we had a great time this week. But the more it fizzles up, I want to be patient on it. But I still do believe if it holds 83.5, it can get through this 86 level. 88, 92 should be on tap. Maybe it happens after earnings, but I really like a potential run into earnings. It's already ran a bit, and again, Facebook kind of shaking it up here. So be a bit patient. But that's my thoughts here, guys. Not really loving any setups into the end of the week. This is one of those weeks where we really just want to get through it. Big tech earnings. It's always a Super Bowl. There's been plenty of opportunity leading up to this, and now it's just kind of getting to that setup phase. So hope this helped, guys. Thank you for watching and listening. Remember, watch the squeezes, the 4 hour. They're starting to develop. That can be our best compass. We got Amazon earnings on deck for Thursday. That could dictate tech. We'll see what happens. But as always, guys, patience pays. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Be safe, trade well.